Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are unpacking one of the most famous and honestly one of the most ancient relationship frameworks in human history. Whether you're already married, maybe planning to be, or honestly just kind of fascinated by the whole philosophy of relationships, the concept of leave and cleave is something you've probably heard at least once. It's everywhere. So, we're going to break down the actual mechanics of this two-part marital mandate to see exactly what it means, straight from the original biblical text. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. We hear this phrase at weddings literally all the time. It's got a great ring to it, sure, but what precisely does it mean to leave and cleave? As we go through our explainer today, we're going to see that these aren't just, pretty poetic words. They actually represent a highly specific, totally action-oriented blueprint for how two separate lives merge into one enduring unit. The central mystery we're going to solve right now is how these two distinct actions, leaving and cleaving, actually work together to create a successful, lasting bond. To really understand the framework, we've got to go back to its foundational origin. Genesis chapter 2, verse 24 says, "Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh." Now, according to the text, God created Adam first, then Eve, and he personally brought Eve to Adam, ordaining that they be uniquely joined together in holy matrimony. This verse right here establishes that the two become one flesh. It's this incredibly profound picture of marital intimacy. It's an act of love and unity that is never meant to involve anyone else. It's literally the ultimate description of two distinct individuals becoming a single, unique entity. To really grasp the depth of this, it kind of helps to look at how different scholars have translated that Old English word cleave. The New International Version translates it as be united. The New American Standard Bible says be joined, and the English Standard Version beautifully renders it as hold fast. You see, these different translations really reveal that this commitment, it isn't passive at all. Holding fast and being united require real, intentional, and continuous effort. It's an active choice. So let's look at section 1, the meaning of leaving. Let's break this framework down into its two core components, starting with that very first instruction. Now, in a literal sense, leaving sounds like simply packing up and moving out of a house, right? But the source text presents a much, much deeper psychological and relational shift that has to happen when you step away from your family of origin. And this brilliantly illustrates a really important point, because it dispels a very common modern misconception. Leaving is absolutely not about ignoring your parents or suddenly refusing to spend time with them. It's not about abandonment at all. Instead, leaving is about priority. It means recognizing that your marriage has just created a brand new family unit, and this new family must now take a higher priority over your previous family of origin. It's a foundational shifting of allegiances. The source material is super clear on the consequences of getting this wrong, too. If spouses refuse to truly step away from their parents, like if they don't make that internal and external shift in priority, the inevitable result is conflict and stress in the new marriage. It's pretty straightforward. When a husband or wife continues to place their parents' opinions, needs, or approval above their spouse's, it immediately introduces friction into that one flesh design we talked about earlier. It fractures the foundation before it can even settle. Let's move to and see how this builds into section 2, the meaning of cleaving. Okay, so if leaving is the necessary detachment from the old priority, cleaving is the active, deliberate attachment to the new one. By definition, to cleave means to adhere to stick to, or to join with. The source text actually notes that it essentially means being glued to your spouse. Just think about that visual for a second. When two things are properly glued together, trying to separate them causes immense damage, right? They essentially become one single object. This glue analogy perfectly and vividly illustrates the permanence and the adherence required to endure the hard times that, let's face it, inevitably hit every single relationship. But once again, we need to clarify what this doesn't mean. Cleaving is definitely not some unhealthy codependence. It doesn't mean you have to be with your spouse every waking moment, and it doesn't mean you can't have meaningful friendships outside of your marriage. Actually, scratch that. It's more like cleaving is being glued together in enduring unity. It's the underlying security that, hey, no matter what outside interests or friendships you have, your primary permanent bond is with your spouse. It is absolutely crucial. It's the key to building the beautiful relationship that God intended. And just like with leaving, there are very real, direct consequences if this step is ignored. If spouses neglect to cleave to each other, the result is a severe lack of intimacy and unity. Think about it. If you aren't actively applying that glue, if you aren't intentionally adhering to your partner, drift naturally occurs. It just does. You end up becoming two separate people simply sharing a living space, rather than the unified, tightly knit entity described back in Genesis. Now, what's really interesting about this is how we actually put it into practice. Because remember, cleaving means we do not quit when things aren't going right. So how do we stick together when things get tough? Well, the source outlines some very specific steps. Talking things out instead of shutting down, praying things through, being patient as you trust the process in both your hearts, being humble enough to admit when you're wrong and asking for forgiveness, and regularly seeking counsel in His Word. This list right here, this is the active ingredient in the glue. Moving on to Section 3, a picture of spiritual union.
As we transition to our final section, the source material expands this entire framework beyond just human marriage, suggesting it's actually designed to be a powerful metaphor for a much larger spiritual reality. We see this in a mirroring scripture from Deuteronomy 13:4. Ye shall walk after the Lord your God, and fear him, and keep his commandments, and obey his voice, and ye shall serve him and cleave unto him. Look at that. The exact same word is used here. The leave and cleave mandate in the marriage bond is fundamentally a picture of the union that God desires to have with humanity.
The exact same two-part framework applies perfectly on a spiritual level. Spiritual leaving means leaving all other gods behind. Whatever form of distraction or idolatry they might take in our modern lives. And spiritual cleaving, that means joining to Him alone, actively reading His Word, and submitting to His authority. The source text concludes that when we follow this instruction closely, both in our marriages and spiritually, we discover true commitment and security, and we do it without facing disappointment. So the crucial point is this provocative question. Are you prioritizing your new family over your past? Have you truly left so that you can effectively cleave? Whether evaluated through the lens of human marriage, looking at how well you're adhering to your spouse during those inevitable hard times, or through the lens of your spiritual commitments, this ancient framework demands a shift in allegiance. It requires us to leave the old behind to build a unified, enduring future. Take a hard look at your own life today. What are you still clinging to that might be preventing you from truly cleaving to what matters most? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you next time.